Welcome to Hannity, and we start tonight with a Fox News alert. The left's favorite conspiracy theory is now dead. It is buried, and there was no collusion, no conspiracy, no obstruction, nothing. The witch hunt is over, and there will be no further charges, no further indictments after 675 days and 9 months before that with the FBI investigation. In other words, almost 3 years total of an intensive, virulent investigation. Robert Mueller's report has officially been submitted to the Attorney General of the United States. President Trump, no more indictments. No collusion charges will be filed. No obstruction charges will be filed. And no conspiracy charges, nor will they be filed. Congressman Mark Meadows put it very well. The Mueller report delivery suggests that no more indictments are coming, which we now know is true, from the special counsel. And that means that we just completed 2 years of investigating Russia collusion without one collusion-related indictment. Not even one. Instead, after nearly 2 years, tens of millions of your tax dollars, the Mueller witch hunt only managed to prosecute, a few people for process crimes. Let's see, Papadopoulos, his big 12 days in jail, lying to prosecutors. Military hero, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, has not been sentenced. He nearly went bankrupt, had to sell his home because of mounting legal bills, with both McCabe and Comey, the FBI director, deputy director, admitting and bragging they set him up, something they'd never do in the Obama or Clinton administrations. And we have Roger Stone. He's going bankrupt, facing trial for allegedly lying to Congress and harassing a witness. Michael Cohen, of course, we know his case, pleading guilty to lying to Congress, other crimes related to taxicab medallions and bank application fraud and taxes. And Paul Manafort, he may spend the rest of his life in prison because of taxes and, again, lying on bank loan applications. What do they all have in common? Nothing. Zero to do with Trump, the campaign, Russia, or collusion. And Mueller also indicated dozens of Russian, actually indicted in this case, Russian nationals, they're never coming here. They're never going to be extradited. Many were Russian spies or Russian bot companies. They will never, ever face trial or be extradited to the United States. Putin, the bad actor he is, Russia, the bad nation they are, they're never going to allow that to happen. None of these charges involve campaign collusion whatsoever. But we had plenty of pre-dawn raids and guns drawn and doors kicked down in the middle of the night, SWAT gear, hours and hours of hardcore interrogation, screws turned, lives ruined. The money spent for what? Trump-Russia collusion was, as we always said, a hoax, a lie conceived by hate, driven by fear. A 22-month witch hunt, not into a crime, but into an individual, a person. That's Donald Trump, who became president, and everyone around him. This is not how it's supposed to work in this country. This cannot happen again. This is pretty downright despicable. And when you look at our Constitution, rule of law, application or equal application of our laws, equal justice under the law, every American tonight should be outraged, concerned about how did we get here? Especially now that we have evidence of known crimes, massive abuse of power, which will be the focus of us in days and months going forward. Now, if the full weight of America's justice system can be used to persecute a sitting president of the United States when they even tried to set the election up for the person that they loved, when that person should have been indicted, that would mean nobody in America is safe. And still, as the Attorney General points out, the Mueller investigation, it was not hindered in any way. Not by the president, not by anybody. As if being president isn't hard enough, the president, he was forced to deal with this undue burden of what is a baseless, absurd investigation that all began before he became president in July of 2016. Now, this, of course, as the mainstream media spread a constant, steady stream of lies and misinformation to the entire world about America's sitting president. Small reminder. And this will get big as the days unfold. Take a look.
You told the Washington Post last week that, quote, there's a smell of treason in the air when it comes to this investigation.
We are looking at the possibility that the President of the United States and those around him during an election campaign colluded with a hostile foreign power to undermine the basis of our democracy.
Donald Trump now sits at the threshold of impeachment.
There's outright treason. I mean, there is no question that what he is doing is giving aid and comfort to the enemy.
It does look like collusion. It does look like he's listening to Putin more than he is American intelligence. And frankly, I've never seen that before.
Vladimir Putin and his associates, somebody has something on Donald Trump.
We're hearing a new word, right? He said it was treason.
And you wonder why I call them the hate Trump media mob. Of course, the hate Trump media mob, they were just following their orders, as they always do, from their leftist Democratic friends, taking their cue from the leaders in the Democratic Party. We have the evidence of that as well. Take a look.
Do you believe that the Trump campaign colluded with the Russians in the 2016 campaign?
Yes.
Do you believe the president himself colluded with the Russians?
Yes, he colluded, and I don't think that's a hard answer to the question at all.
Certainly say with confidence that there is significant evidence of collusion between the campaign and Russia.
It's beyond the shadow of a doubt to me that if there was not collusion, there was at least the effort to collude with a foreign power.
We saw cold, hard evidence of the Trump campaign, indeed the Trump family, eagerly intending to collude possibly with Russia, a hostile foreign power, to influence American elections. It's becoming clear we have suffered a desecration of our democracy not seen since Watergate.
They swallowed it all. Hook, line, and sinker. And tonight, the only people actually shocked that the witch hunt came up empty are those on the left who once again, rush to judgment, deny due process, peddling a steady stream of daily lies, propaganda, misinformation, and, of course, conspiracy theories. And this includes those who hated Trump so much that they were willing to suspend any and all logic and believe in a fantasy, and thereby creating false hopes for every Trump hater all across the country. There will be a reckoning. We will hold all of these people in the days, weeks, and months accountable. Now, of course, this includes known liar and leaker. Yep, Congressman. Well, we call him the cowardly Schiff. He won't come on the program. Now, he might be the most detached from reality after a 9-month investigation from the FBI, a 22-month investigation from Mueller. You had a bipartisan investigation from the Senate, another bipartisan investigation in the House. After all these investigations prior to today turned up zero evidence of collusion, nothing. Well, earlier today, Adam Schiff, he vowed to continue his own personal witch hunt into the president. Of course, why serve the American people when you can stay focused on a conspiracy theory? Take a look.
What are the outstanding questions your committee, the House Intelligence Committee, for example, will continue to investigate regardless of what the Mueller report reveals?
Well, there are any number of examples that I could give you of information that we've obtained in our investigation, information that's become clear from the special counsel investigation, that may not be neatly summed up in a decision or disclosure that we decided to indict A but not B. If they're not answered, then we're going to have to answer them. We're going to have to find the truth.
Schiff continues to be blinded by his rage and hatred of all things Trump, lying to his constituents for political gain. Oh, and of course he's raising money off of yours truly. Sends out fundraising letters with Sean Hannity, attack Schiff, but he's never backing down. Please donate here. Now, either way, many in the mainstream media, or the media mob as we call them, they're starting to face some reality. Their favorite conspiracy theory is officially dead. Sad day. There's no thrill up people's legs today over at some other networks. Take a look.
Would it be the smoking gun? Would it give information as to criminality? Would it answer the core question of collusion? To the extent that it doesn't, to the extent that there are no more indictments, I have to say I think it's good news for the White House.
Well, let's be specific. This is really good news for a lot of people around Donald Trump.
That narrative that this was all an elaborate setup, that there was an elaborate piece of the puzzle waiting for that last element, which was Americans colluding with Russians, it clearly is not part of the special counsel's move forward at this point.
He's been vindicated by them, essentially.
And then he's now vindicated, exactly. But if I'm at Mar-a-Lago with the president, as Pamela's been reporting, the lawyers are,
feeling good.
That I would be very happy.
You have to say that if it turns out that there is no indictment that alleges any conspiracy between anyone in the Trump campaign and the Russians, that vindicates the president to some degree.
You can see their disappointment. Oh, it's got to be killing them. I can almost taste their tears from here. Years and years of breathless hysteria, lies presented as facts and truth. What is like Maddow and all the other MSNBC conspiracy theorists? What are they going to cover now? What is fake news CNN? Where do they find their content now? What will little Chucky Todd at night be dreaming of? Now, I'm sure, per usual, they'll just find other fake anti-Trump conspiracies to push, all while never apologizing for outright lies, breathless, hysterical coverage day after day, night after night. Now, we've been right all along. The president has been vindicated, but so much damage has already been done. We now have our partisan two-tiered system of justice that we've been warning you about. It has now been laid bare for the country and the world to see. We have watched constitutional rights trampled on, the Constitution shredded, the rule of law, equal justice under the law, equal application of our laws, frankly, is as of today a joke, one that will have a long-standing impact on this country and our future. And the big question tonight is, where do we go from here? What about all the laws that we know have been broken with real evidence? Because up until now, many Democrats, all these deep state operatives that have abused power and conspired against Trump and have been involved in conspiracies, yeah, they've gotten a free pass. Mueller spent 22 months investigating President Trump over what was a fantasy based on no evidence. Meanwhile, we have for 2 years on this program presented real, actual Russian campaign collusion in the 2016 election, the biggest abuse of power scandal in history. We have real collusion with real evidence. Hillary Clinton's dirty Russian dossier was literally put together by a foreign spy, Christopher Steele. He used real Russia lies. Yeah, from Russia. And why was that not investigated? Why are we not talking about that tonight? That dirty Clinton Russian dossier, which was never verified, and we now know unverifiable because its author, he can't stand by his own dossier, his own writings. That same dossier used to obtain a FISA warrant to spy on a Trump campaign associate. And we now know reporters were fed and spread those Russian lies, and they were spreading it to the American people before the 2016 election. That includes the Washington Post and David Corn and Michael Isikoff. We know FISA court judges that they were lied to, frauds committed before them. They were never told about the dossier's author hating Trump. They were never told about the hyper-partisan nature. Hillary Clinton paid for it. They were never told that none of this was verified or corroborated. Never told any of this. Why was Carter Page in the middle of all of this? Why were his constitutional rights allowed to be violated based on Hillary Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies? Why was the Trump campaign spied on because of Clinton bought and paid for Russian lies? Why is none of this? Why has that not been investigated? Where's the special counsel for that? And also, we now know, thanks to the Hill's John Solomon, we know a high-ranking Ukrainian official tried to help Hillary Clinton get elected, interfere in our election. They did it by timing the release of embarrassing material about then-campaign chairman Paul Manafort. A Ukrainian court called it an illegal intrusion into the American election campaign. Why was that not investigated by Mueller? What about the Uranium One scandal? What about the whole issue of Vladimir Putin having thugs right here in America that we know were involved in bribery, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering? Why did we know? Because we had an American FBI spy inside of Putin's network telling our top law enforcement Putin wanted a foothold in the uranium market in America, and he got it. because people like Hillary Clinton and others signed off on that ridiculous move. We don't have enough uranium. We need to import uranium, the foundational material for nuclear weapons. What about the Clinton Foundation? Oh, they ended up taking about $145 million from all those executives involved in that Uranium One deal. And that was Secretary of State Hillary Clinton signing off on it. Her husband meeting with Vladimir Putin, 3 times his normal speaking fee in Russia. Why was that not investigated? Why were there, when you think about this, no criminal referrals for those associated with Clinton? Oh, that's right. None of that was investigated because the special counsel's investigation was a partisan witch hunt from day one. Remember, after all, Mueller hired a team filled with big-time Clinton, Obama-loving, Trump-hating Democratic donors. His top lawyer, Jeannie Ray, literally Hillary Clinton's lawyer at the Clinton Foundation. How in good conscience did she ever get hired by Mueller? Why was Mueller's pit bull, his top prosecutor, Andrew Weissman, a guy attended Hillary Clinton's election night victory party that never transpired? He was the top investigator for Mueller from the very beginning of the investigation. And don't forget Peter Strzok. He was involved from the get-go. You know, Peter Strzok had a girlfriend, Lisa Page. Strzok was the one that was calling Trump supporters smelly Walmart shoppers, saying that Hillary Clinton should win 100 million to 0. He referred to Trump as a deplorable human being, loathsome. He saw the Russia probe as an insurance policy to stop Trump in case he wins. And don't forget how they rigged. He was the one that interviewed Hillary Clinton in her investigation. And he was writing Hillary's exoneration in May of 2016 before they did the investigation in July. And he interviewed Hillary July 2nd. Comey exonerated her on July 5th. And then they started investigating Donald Trump. And what about the biggest slam dunk obstruction of justice case ever? Even Alan Dershowitz couldn't get me off. I asked him last night if I had subpoenaed 33,000 emails, I delete them, I acid wash my hard drive with bleach pit, and then I bust up my devices, my Blackberries, my iPhones with hammers and remove SIM cards. I think I'd be in jail for a long time. Don't forget, we had classified and top secret information on Hillary's secret server. What about Mueller's other investigators, other prosecutors? How many of them? They donated tens and tens of thousands of dollars to Democrats. Yeah, including Hillary. And Mueller hired 0 registered Republicans. So we're going to find out maybe over the weekend, maybe next week, sometime soon. This Mueller report is inevitably, at least the contents of it, to the extent that we are allowed, to the extent the Attorney General decides it is in his discretion and his discretion only. We're going to find out as much as we possibly can about what's in there. But know this. This is only, whatever it is, it's only one side of the story. Whatever you hear is only the prosecutorial viewpoint from what is a group of hyper-partisan Trump haters, those who are always hell-bent on bludgeoning this president, no matter what. But facts matter. Truth matters. And tonight, as pointed out by Byron York, we know that Mueller did not indict Donald Trump Jr. or Jared Kushner or other people subject to the insane media hysteria speculation. Is the media ever going to apologize to them? Don't hold your breath. And we know that Mueller did not charge anyone in the Trump campaign, nobody, and will not be charging anyone further with conspiring with Russia to fix the 2016 election. We know that Robert Mueller never subpoenaed the president. We know that President Trump did not fire Mueller, as many predicted he would. We know that the president did not interfere tonight with the Mueller investigation. This was an investigation into collusion. If there's no collusion, obstruction, or conspiracy that was found, nothing else matters. No matter what these people that have been selling you lies for years tell you. But we must never forget what has happened here. A partisan witch hunt that was designed to protect their favorite presidential candidate, rigged that election when she should have been indicted. They didn't want Donald Trump to win. So then they lied and committed fraud before a FISA court, denying a fellow citizen their constitutional rights, spying on an opposition party candidate in an election year, having it leaked to the American people, Russian lies to influence the election. And then, of course, telling Donald Trump, James Comey did it, Well, he signs on to the FISA application in October 2016. In January 2017, he said it's unverified and salacious. That's not what he told the FISA court. They never told the FISA court that Hillary paid for it. They never told the FISA court Christopher Steele hated Trump. They never told the FISA court that nothing's verified here. This cannot happen if we want to remain a constitutional republic. We must bring the real perpetrators of real fraud, real conspiracy, real abuse of power and corruption to justice. Where we go from here tonight matters. All of those who abuse their powers, all of those that did everything in their power that we grant them, we give to them, to first stop Donald Trump from ever being elected, and then having an insurance policy if he was elected, thinking they knew better than you, we, the American people. They thought they knew better than all of us. They all need to be held accountable as we move forward from this day on, in the days, the weeks, the months ahead. And by the way, you in the media, I promise you, you will be eating your fake news, conspiracy theories and reports and hysteria for decades to come. Joining us now, Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz is with us, and who's going to write his own rebuttal to this report, which will be interesting. Fox News legal analyst, best-selling author of The Russia Hoax, Greg Jarrett, and former federal prosecutor Sidney Powell. I saw you on earlier, Professor, with Brett Baer, and you rightly made the point, this is one side. But we do know that there are no indictments. We do know that there won't be any further indictments. And that says an awful lot to me.
It does. But, you know, the report will be very critical of the Trump administration and of President Trump. And we have to remember it's a completely one-sided report. None of the witnesses were cross-examined by the Trump legal team. The Trump legal team didn't have an opportunity to submit responses and answers. I would have thought the better policy would be for Attorney General Barr to withhold releasing the report for a week or 10 days, give the Trump team an opportunity to respond, and then simultaneously release both reports to the public. That's what the adversary system is about. You have a one-sided report by the prosecution, then you have a one-sided report by the defense, and then the public has the right to assess the veracity and the persuasiveness of each report and come to their own conclusion. That's what the marketplace of ideas is all about. So I want to urge every American, if in fact they only produce the Mueller report, even if it's exculpatory, it will have some negative things. Withhold final judgment until you see the Trump defense team's response. Only then can you really form a final judgment about who's right and who's wrong here.
Oh, but of course they don't want the president or his legal team to have any viewing of this at all, Professor. Let me bring Greg Jarrett in. Greg, obviously this has been a big issue. You know every detail. You chronicled it in your book, the #1 bestseller, The Russian Hoax. And do you feel vindicated today? I agree with the professor. It's going to be filled with innuendo, but innuendo doesn't matter. There will be no further indictments. That matters.
Yeah, and the president, not just me, but the president should feel vindicated. He said all along there was no collusion. And here we now have word from the Department of Justice, there will be no more indictments, which means nobody was ever charged with a Russia collusion-related crime, a conspiracy. There should never have been, as I argue in my book, an investigation by the FBI. We learned just days ago from Lisa Page in her closed-door testimony, she admitted readily, we didn't have any evidence of collusion when we launched the probe. And 9 months later, when the special counsel Robert Mueller was appointed, we still didn't have any collusion. Go back and look at Comey's testimony, which also was behind closed doors, and he confessed to the exact same thing. So here we are, 2.5 years later. God knows how many millions of dollars spent. But I feel for the people, and I talked to 6 of them, who were subject to interrogation by Robert Mueller and his team of prosecutors. They were browbeat. They were pressured into lying, to saying things that were not true, to incriminate other people. That is not just unconscionable for a prosecutor to do, but in fact, it's an attempt to suborn perjury. Who's going to investigate the investigators?
You know, you wrote a best-selling book, Sidney Powell, License to Lie, and, you know, what did Judge Ellis say? That we know what this is really all about. This has nothing really to do with Manafort. This is about seeing if he'll sing or compose so they can impeach or get Donald Trump. He was right from the get-go. But you chronicle that, and a lot of the people in this case, you have chronicled their abuse of power in the past.
Oh, yes. Andrew Weissman in particular, Sean, is the lead villain in License to Lie. And if people really want to understand how Mr. Mueller and his cabal of Clinton cronies and prosecutors operate, they need to read License to Lie, because these people will do anything to craft the narrative they want to craft to make their cases stand up. If they couldn't find collusion against the president, there was absolutely nothing there for them to work with. He is completely exonerated.
You know, last night, Professor Dershowitz, you kind of laughed. I said, you're a great lawyer, and if I hired you and I had deleted 33,000 subpoenaed email, and then I wipe cleaned my hard drive and busted up my devices with hammers, I didn't think you could get me off. I mean, maybe you could. Maybe you and Greg together could team up and save my life. But the reality is that happened. And then other things happened. We now know a lot about what was going on behind the scenes. Lying to a FISA court, committing a fraud on purpose. We know Bruce Orr testified. He warned everybody. Steele hates Trump. Hillary paid for it. It's unverified. Now we know it's unverifiable because Steele says, I have no idea if it's true. So there's no way the FBI could have verified it. But they signed off on it. One original application and 3 subsequent applications. If we can do that to one American citizen and spy on one campaign in this cycle and not get to the bottom of that, how dangerous is that to our country?
Well, I think it's very dangerous. That's why from day one, I didn't want to see the appointment of a special counsel with people's target on their backs. I wanted to see the appointment by Congress of a independent, nonpartisan expert commission like the 9/11 Commission, looking into the entire issue of the 2016 election. Everything. The Steele dossier, what maybe the Clinton camp did wrong, what maybe the Trump camp may have done wrong. An objective, nonpartisan investigation open to the public, not behind closed doors, not one-sided, so that everybody in America could see what went wrong with the 2016 election in terms of Russia's attempts to influence it and make sure we can prevent it in the future. That's what commissions are supposed to look into. But when you make somebody into a prosecutor, they're not interested in the truth. They're interested in getting somebody and putting a target on their back and prosecuting, and that is not the way to get to the truth.
And Greg, if Hillary has her investigation rigged, FISA court judges, they're committing open fraud against them to spy on an individual, an American, and also get into the Trump campaign, and those lies are spread, real Russian lies. Are you confident those people will be held accountable?
I think they should be, and I think William Barr will look into it, Lindsey Graham will look into it. But beyond FISA, James Comey stole government documents. Those presidential memos were not his. He delivered them to unauthorized individuals, 3 individuals. So that needs to be examined. And according to Senator Grassley, at least one of those memos contained classified information, and the FBI had to do a spillage cleanup on that. So Comey and McCabe and Strzok and everybody who signed off on those FISA warrants as well should all be subject to a serious, legitimate investigation. Present the evidence to a grand jury if it exists, and allow them to indict if appropriate.
Sidney, where do we go from here?
Well, Sean, to restore the rule of law and the integrity of the FBI and the Department of Justice, there is going to have to be a real investigation by the Department of Justice of what really did happen here. And everything's going to need to be declassified that has been withheld so far. We need the rest of the transcripts of the testimony of the people who testified before Congress. We need the FISA applications. We need the Bruce Orr 302s and all the things that we've talked about before that the president has the ability to declassify. Those should be made available now so the American people can see what really went on. And then the people that are responsible for this real conspiracy to destroy the president, to keep him from being elected, must be held accountable, or there will be no rule of law in this country.
Agreed. You know what? Those FISA applications ought to be released at the exact same time that the Attorney General gives his report. Those 302s, same thing. Gang of 8 information, same thing. All the other buckets we've talked about.
And I think the FISA court ought to see whether or not a contempt of court citation against the people who misled them is appropriate.
Agreed.
We need to hear from those FISA judges
unredacted.
too. Absolutely.
Yes. We need the names unredacted from Rosemary Collier's decision of a year ago where Comey gave illegal access to the raw NSA database to 3 private contractors. We need to know who those 3 private contractors are. That led to all the unmaskings and everything, too.
We forgot about that. Leaking raw intelligence. Unmasking at a 350% increased rate. No, we don't. We're civil libertarians here. Thank you all. Joining us now live from the Justice Department with the very latest details on this breaking story tonight is our own Catherine Herridge. Catherine, I know you've been working hard all. You look cold. Is it cold there?
I am so cold here. If I'm going to be absolutely honest, but it's worth it to be right here at the Justice Department. So I want to pick up on a couple of points, Sean, that you just made with your panelists, which is that in addition to the special counsel investigation, there's been a parallel investigation that's been run here at the Justice Department by the Inspector General, Michael E. Horowitz, and he's been looking at a handful of issues. One is the leaking of classified memos, classified information by senior FBI executives, also the receiving of gifts by those executives from members of the media and others, and then most importantly, these allegations of surveillance abuse through the FISA court in the 2016 campaign. And on that point, Fox News exclusively obtained 40 pages of text messages. I have them here between the former acting FBI director, Andrew McCabe, and FBI lawyer Lisa Page. And these text messages, Sean, show that in October of 2016, just 9 days before the FISA application was granted for Carter Page, there was a lot of concern and heartburn by a senior Justice Department official about the bias of a confidential human source that was associated with the application. Based on our reporting, we believe it's the former British spy, Christopher Steele. These text messages, I'm also told tonight, since our story went online, were never provided to some of the House committees that were seeking these text messages of Andrew McCabe last year. They felt that this obstructed their investigation. And finally, in the text messages, you see senior people at the FBI sharing very derogatory blogs about then candidate Trump, and even using the D word to describe Congressman Trey Gowdy. So you can get a sense, if you go online and read our story, whether it's more evidence of political bias that may have infected these investigations, Sean.
And remember, we're going to go over those in a lot more detail. Everything's up on foxnews.com, Catherine's full report, exclusive report. But remember, McCabe also said no dossier, no FISA application. Interesting. This could shed a lot of light. This is only the beginning. Joining us now, The Hill's John Solomon and Fox News contributor Sarah Carter, House Minority Whip Congressman Steve Scalise is with us. You know, it's interesting what Catherine said. John and Sarah, both of you began this journey into this whole abuse of power corruption scandal, which I argue is the biggest in history, with the abuse of intelligence. Now, according to Catherine, we're going back to that. John, you wrote a great column today, The Wisdom of Trump's Lawyers and the Accountability for the Mueller Report. A lot of good you found out of it, no matter whatever innuendo might be in there tonight, next week or over the weekend.
Yeah, I think when we look back at this, one of the seminal decisions that protected the president was Rudy Giuliani's and Jay Sekulow's decision not to put the president before Mueller's team and have him be subjected to questioning and then put into a perjury trap, as we saw George Papadopoulos and Mike Flynn, and quite frankly, 25 years ago, Bill Clinton fall into. So I think that's going to turn out to be one of the most important things that happened here. But when this is all said and done, what your last panel just talked about is the most important thing. If we don't want a repeat of this in history, accountability has to be handed out to all the people who pulled off this ruse.
And that would mean the intelligence abuses, Sarah, that 350% increase that you and John reported over 2 years ago now. And that would mean Hillary Clinton having her case rigged, as we now know, an exoneration written well before, a slam dunk case on obstruction. Even James Baker thought she should have been indicted on the Espionage Act. And then the conduct and the misuse of the bludgeoning of Trump that followed with the phony dossier.
Yes, Sean, there's extraordinary malfeasance within the FBI that we've seen based on the evidence that's come out over the last few years, and even within the intelligence community. And remember, we talked about the weaponization of the intelligence community, and that's why it's so imperative that it be investigated. When John and I first started reporting on this, I mean, this was years ago, not only did we see that exponential increase in unmaskings, but we also know, and we've discovered through our stories and through our investigations, that former UN Ambassador Samantha Powers had over nearly 300 unmaskings. She even attested in testimony to Trey Gowdy that she didn't even sign off on all these. So maybe that means someone else was signing her name and unmasking people. And these would be people probably connected to the administration or people connected to the campaign. So this is something that still needs to be investigated. This is abuse of our system and abuse of our intelligence apparatus. There is no other word to describe this. And what Greg Jarrett said was right on the money. Who's going to investigate the investigators?
You know, Congressman, we know Russian lies were used to influence the election, and we know who paid for them, and we know they weren't corroborated. And when we know they were used for a FISA application. We know there was Russian interference. By the way, Devin Nunes warned about it in 2014. We know this is a hostile regime. Putin's a hostile actor. It's not in question. But we also now know about Ukrainian attempts to influence the election in favor of Hillary. Why didn't Mueller, if he's concerned about Russian interference, why did he not address a phony, bought, and paid for Russian dossier used as a weapon to get a FISA application that gave a backdoor into the Trump campaign? How is that possible?
Well, Sean, there are a lot of serious questions like that ought to be answered. You know, Devin Nunes has raised it. Others have raised it. We've said all along, look, we looked into collusion and found no collusion. And yet that was only a few months into the Trump administration, and yet Mueller continued to go on. I want to see, obviously, the report's got to come out. If it turns out, like we're hearing, there aren't going to be further indictments, then number one, it does vindicate President Trump, but it also raises and gives credence to those claims that this was a witch hunt. And, Sean, I'd like to see not only the report be made public, but how many tens of millions of taxpayer dollars were spent over nearly 2 years to meander around and, as you say, bully people if there was no collusion, which was the intent of the Mueller investigation. And, oh, by the way, what about people like Adam Schiff, who said 2 years ago that there was more than circumstantial evidence of collusion? If it turns out there isn't any, are they going to hold account as well for what they said and the smearing that they tried to make of good people?
Well, I would like to get to hear from the FISA court judges. You know, maybe it's just my upbringing in law enforcement, which I've talked about a lot, and so many people in my family in law enforcement. Why do I think that if I purposely omitted information in an application to a judge, important information like who paid for something, or if I lied to a FISA court judge and said something that was not true, John Solomon, why do I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm just paranoid, but I think I'd probably be locked up, put in jail, and I'd have one pretty pissed off judge who I was brought up to say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, Your Honor, no, Your Honor, yes, sir, no, sir.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I have a strong suspicion from the reporting I've done that the FISA court is waiting for the IG's findings, the independent review, and that may trigger action at the court, trigger action at the Attorney General's office, certainly inform Senator Lindsey Graham's investigation. I think the second half of 2019 will be a half year of accountability that will bring a lot of people to justice. I have heard from inside the court that there are judges concerned and waiting for the IG report. I think that could be a seminal moment.
What are we, look, we now know that there will be no further indictments from Mueller. I'm pretty certain, based on the team that he hired that was extraordinarily biased, I expect that we're going to probably have a lot of innuendo, and people are now saying, well, he's just providing a roadmap for somebody else to do. John, you're shaking your head no. Why?
Yeah, I don't. I tell you, I've done a lot of reporting on this, Sean, and I think Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein and the letter he wrote governing this made very clear at the very beginning, if we don't find crimes, we're not going to use the report to smear someone. They want to do the opposite of what James Comey did when he released the Hillary Clinton report. I think there's going to be a very sparse amount of details in this report. I think everyone's going to be surprised how spartan the details are.
Yeah. Sarah, what do you think?
I think John's right. I mean, we could be surprised. It could go the other direction. But I think John's right. I don't think there's going to be a lot of details in this report, Sean. And I think it's evident by what we're hearing from the Democrats, right? The rumors going through Congress right now. Democrats expect this to be a dud. A dud. This is why Adam Schiff is so adamant about moving forward with investigations on his own that have nothing to do with Russia. He wants to push forward and investigate everything Trump, from his taxes to his family. I don't think the American people are going to buy this. I think this is over. And I think as far as when the report comes out and it does become public, it'll really be in the hands then when it goes public to the president. And for President Trump to come out, and of course he'll have to come out and make a statement, but to say it's time for this country to move on. But the next thing is, of course, there has to be an investigation into what happened here so that it never happens again. But I don't think the American people are going to buy what the Democrats are dishing out. A constant investigation for the next 2 years into President Trump is going to backfire on them big time.
I agree. Congressman, we'll give you the last word on this tonight.
Well, first, I agree that if you look at what has been going on for the last 2 years, it was set up to be a witch hunt. They wanted to find something based on people within the FBI that had a political agenda. Look, everybody's got their own political views, but when you want to put that badge on, you check your agenda at the door, and that didn't happen with some people at the FBI. I'd like to see a real investigation to clean up some of the bad apples that there are over there so we can truly restore the FBI's integrity, which we need to do, but also hold people accountable for what happened. The FISA abuses, if you're a FISA judge, you are going to be steaming right now because they went to the FISA court and maybe gave misleading statements to get that access. If they abuse the FISA court, I want to see further action there as well for real accountability. I think this is just the beginning of the
John and Sarah, real
accountability
quick,
side.
do you believe?
So let's go. Yeah.
John and Sarah, do you believe that there'll be indictments handed down over all this? I believe there will be.
Absolutely, I do, but I think I think it comes down to the quality of the evidence that the IG provides to the public, but I think there's a strong possibility of indictments.
All right.
I couldn't agree more.
With us. Important night. Okay, thank you. And all right, joining now for more on our continuing coverage, our breaking news tonight, our very own Ed Henry is standing by in our newsroom tonight. Ed.
Sean, good to see you. The headline tonight is that after nearly 2 years of investigating, Robert Mueller's probe of alleged Russian collusion is officially over with no further indictments. Even the president's critics, like James Comey, now acknowledging they are no longer sure there was collusion or even obstruction of justice, despite all the speculation. Now, on the surface, that certainly sounds like good news for the president. It means flatly he and members of his family, close aides, will not be indicted by Robert Mueller, despite all the claims to the contrary by his critics. However, we still do not know the specifics of the report. And of course, it does not mean the investigations are over. As you've been talking about, the Democrats run the House. They're already talking about bringing Mueller in as a sworn witness for testimony that could still be damaging to the president, that information that did not lead to an indictment, but that could be considered by the House for possible impeachment down the road. Also, don't forget the Southern District here in New York, where former attorney Michael Cohen pled guilty to crimes, still investigating the Trump Organization. The president and the White House, though, feel confident in talking to some of his allies that parts of this report will get to Congress and the public, but they feel confident with the new Attorney General William Barr in charge. He tipped off the White House about 4:35 p.m. today. The report was coming. Then he went to the congressional committees in the House and Senate, told them that it was coming. Bottom line tonight, Sean, is that in talking to allies of the president in private, they're telling me that they are very confident that this report is going to show there was no collusion with the Russians. But I am picking up from some advisors to the president that they're nervous about what Robert Mueller is going to say in this report about allegations of obstruction of justice, that clearly he is not going to indict the president or others around him over obstruction of justice, but they think the details of the report may suggest that Mueller believed there was some kind of obstruction but did not bring charges, I'm told, by these advisors to the president because of that long-standing Justice Department precedent.
All right, Henry, if they want obstruction, they could just go to Hillary's emails that she deleted, acid washed, and bust. Just imagine if I busted up my little iPhone here. Anyway, all right, Ed Henry, thank you. Joining us now with Reaction, Fox News contributors. Dan Bongino is with us and Jason Chaffetz is with us. I'll start with you, Jason, where you know Michael Horowitz, you know what's been going on, and he takes forever. He has 600 people working for him. Why does he always take 18 months to get a report? He did good work the last time. He got us the struck page text, but I would think on FISA in particular, we know a fraud was committed, we know information was omitted, and we know that a power was abused. Why is this taking so long?
Well, I do think the most consequential thing, and I've said this for a long time, is going to be that Inspector General report. It never happens fast enough. It's probably about another 90 days out. You don't hear leaks. You don't hear anything about it. But when we look at FISA abuse, we look at the malfeasance at the highest echelons within the Department of Justice, he is going to be the one to do that. And I think the most consequence where you're actually going to see collusion is actually what was going on at the highest echelons within the FBI. And I think it's going to be scathing, it'll be thorough, and it'll be credible because it does come from Michael Horowitz.
Your thoughts, Dan Bongino, tonight as, well, it's got to, you could already tell that in the lead up to this, they were lowering the expectation game. I'm listening to that, and it's like, I wonder if deep down they knew there was no evidence. We already had a Senate committee, a House committee, and an FBI investigation all conclude no Russia collusion.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get to that. And I'm also, what I'm told is the majority of interest in Mueller's team was all about Russia, not about obstruction. And we all know James Comey admitted he could be fired for any or no reason at all by the president.
Well, a couple of things tonight. First, Sean, Jim Comey's professional reputation is on fire. Everybody's forgetting here that it was Jim Comey's memos, the leak of those memos, that was meant as a push and an incentive to start this witch hunt that ended up today like a dumpster fire. We now have absolutely nothing. But another thing on Comey, remember, they based nearly their entire investigation on the dossier that we now know, according to Comey himself, he claimed was salacious and unverified. So not only does Comey initiate, as the FBI director, a bunk investigation that leads nowhere based on a fake dossier, but he also incentivizes them through the leak of illegal leaks of information to start a special counsel probe that leads to what? Taxi cab medallions? That's it? Nothing? This is all we've got? What a disaster.
Let me ask you both this. Based on no further indictments, I'll ask you both 20 seconds each. Jason first. No further indictments. What's the worst that could be in there? What? Innuendo? Maybe people shouldn't have sat in a meeting, or this piece of paper didn't look good? What?
No, I don't think there'll be much at all. But remember, it was the Inspector General who found Director Comey insubordinate in his first report when he did this stuff, and look for more of that to come.
Yeah, nothing will be in there, Sean. Character assassination, obstruction of justice is dead. Andy McCabe already admitted under oath there was, quote, no effort to obstruct the investigation. It's dead. Forget obstruction. It's nonsense.
That's a big headline. I agree with you on the obstruction part. It won't be anything about it. But probably innuendo, just looking at the team that he put together. But a lot of people should be worried tonight in the deep state. All right, when we come back, don't go anywhere. A lot more reaction to tonight's big breaking news. The Mueller report is in. There will be no further indictments coming. There are a lot of media people, the hate Trump media mob, they're crying right now. They're so upset. They've been lying to you for over 2 years. Straight ahead. All right, this is Fox News Alert. The Mueller report is now in the hands of the new attorney, Bill Barr. Hate Trump Media has been obsessing over this witch hunt for 22 months. Joining us now with more reaction, media reporter for The Hill, also WOR News Talk Radio host, Joe Concha, and Fox News contributor, former pollster Doug Schoen. You know, I actually was told, Joe, that somebody said, Bill Barr made this happen. Bill Barr stopped Mueller from doing his job. And actually, if you look at it, Mueller's actions weren't blocked by anybody. Is this now their way of admitting, we lied to you for over 3 years and we're sorry? Maybe I'm misinterpreting it.
Well, Sean, I'm just happy that I won't, for the first time in 22 months, for at least every day, hear that President Trump is probably going to fire Bob Mueller, right? I mean, remember hearing that story over and over again, and clearly that didn't happen. Look, this was always called the Russia investigation for a reason. It was in every chyron, those words, below me, it's in every headline, every lead paragraph. And when you take Russia out of Russian investigation, it loses its impact. So you ask me, will they apologize? That would mean putting aside ego. You'll get the hubris of the defeated instead for those who push this narrative. And what's going to happen? No apology. There'll simply be a pivot to whatever is most negative towards the president next. No apologies here because egos don't allow for that, Sean.
No apologies, no retraction. Fake news, and by the way, journalism's dead. From a political standpoint, Doug, this is your party, just doubling down and promising 8 more investigations, and instead we'll investigate Donald Trump's checkbook from when he was 11 years old. That's where we're going next?
Yeah, and I think from what I saw today from Adam Schiff and his colleagues, that's precisely where they're going. Look, this is a big win for Donald Trump, but it's also a big win for him vis-a-vis 2020. It proves his case. And if the Democrats keep going, Sean, as they may well, that's going to just play into the hands of overreach that we saw in 1998 when the Starr report was used unsuccessfully by the Republicans. So bad news for the Democrats. My advice, give it up, stop, move to issues, not Russia investigations or corruption.
No. Democrats never listen to Doug Schoen. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I hope they will. We don't need investigations.
When we come back,
need issues.
Huge night in Washington. We'll tell you more straight ahead. All right, our breaking news. That's right. No more indictments. Mueller report is finished. We are going to have a lot more and hold a lot of people accountable. Now, Monday on the program, Newt Gingrich, the great one, Mark Levin, Congressman Devin Nunes, all join us to have reaction, what we learned over the weekend. Thank you for being with us. We will never be the hate Trump media mob. Have a great weekend. It's going to be a great weekend for Trump. We'll see you Monday.